we haven't really talked about the structure of the book, but in some ways it's like a workbook with with exercises such as you were referring to, in terms of awakening the imagination mind and or the curiosity mind, and so the lazy part of me has a skeptical question that I wanted to ask you about, uh, which is I could imagine this being very effective in a group experience with a leader, but as a book that I'm reading, I gloss over that, even though this is supposedly something that part of my job and so on, but it doesn't, I know I'm not going to do those exercises. Um, so what, and I think that's not just me. I think there is a human tendency in that direction for some of us who are not, say, terribly introverted and just can just jump into, yes, I'm going to spend lots of time just being with myself and opening, you know. So what are you doing to address that? I heard you mention workshops. I assume
Yeah,
I assume you want to build something in to
right.
address this.
Well, there's a community. Community is so important. The outer community of our friends, family, colleagues, that community is so essential for support, for conversation, for engagement. There's also an inner community, and that inner community consists of those figures that I was naming, the soul companions, and I named them in the book, and I offer ways of making contact and yes, an exercise, so to speak, of how to sustain a quality of contact. But when you bring those two together, when you bring people together in community, and together we are working through some of this material, it's extraordinary what begins to happen. Honestly, it's just heartfelt. So yeah, as you named that I am doing workshops on the imagination matrix, and people can find that under Dream Tending, the website. One's coming up in the spring. Uh, and I think that really is it. When people are having
Are these
trouble,
in-person dreams or in-person groups or Zoom groups?
I do both. I'll do one group Zoom, and that I do a lot of that because there's a lot of folks internationally that gather. And then I do groups in person. We'll be doing three different groups on the campuses of Pacifica in this next year. So there's different ways of doing it. People really enjoy being in location, in residence, in a living community, interacting with one another. And there, of course, we're here in Santa Barbara, so we were talking about the ocean. You can actually, we take time to actually walk to the ocean and be part of that environment as well. And two, though, it is remarkable when we gather online in community, what's possible when it's just not information overload. So the exercises that you alluded to, I'll offer them and people will work with them in their home place. There's a little bit of guidance there and leadership, and then they'll get connected in smaller groups of 4 or 5 in breakout rooms online, and then
Yeah.
gather back into the bigger community and have conversation. Oh, I just finished yesterday at about 3 o'clock, a whole gathering of folks, and it's just heartfelt. It's so wonderful to be with others that have the same sensitivity, the same interest, that are bring their heart and vulnerability, and we create the safety, that's required. We need safety, support, protection in order to really engage, because not all the figures that we meet in imagination are friendly, of course, right? Like in dreams. In fact,
Yeah.
what's true now is that more people than ever before are remembering dreams. The International Association of Study of Dreams just did a big research study on that, and the remembering dreams is really at an all-time high. And of course, with that comes nightmares, the nightmarish, the intolerable, the difficult, the challenging. So how do we work with those figures? How do we tend to those figures in a way that is not so frightening and crippling? And we know that if we just try to push them away or psychologize them only or medicate them away, that's not the full answer. Is it helpful at times? Yes. Is it the full answer? Not really, because they tend to just come right back, 3 nights later, 4 weeks later, something in awake life re-stimulates, and there's that experience that then evokes something that is problematic. In deep imagination, though, when we're journeying in imagination through a process that I offer of kind of really working with those images to find their generative quality, oh my goodness, those figures, perhaps as much as any figure, become so helpful in terms of offering guidance and opening the inquiry. They really do provide incredible support and intelligence as we journey into those realms of imagination, or as
Yeah.
we those quadrants.